Hey, how's it going, my peeps? It is now time for the Raw results slash highlights and review video. I'll go over the results of the show, some of the highlights in my opinion, and give you guys my thoughts on the show. So it kicks off with Edge coming out to a huge pop. Keep in mind, it is in Toronto, Edge's hometown, so it is expected, but it was a really big pop. Great crowd, and it's for the cutting edge. He says this guest is supposed to be Randy, and Triple H, well actually, he says Triple H brought him out here because he said it was best for business, and then he mocks the way Triple H says it, and he says Triple H wanted a reunion, but no, not a reunion with his best friend Christian, but a reunion of another partner, and that is his former partner in Rated RKO, Randy. But he says Randy really has nothing interesting to say. It's like watching paint dry, so instead of having Randy as the guest, he's decided to bring somebody else out as a guest, and the crowd then starts chanting yes, and he says he thinks this is better for business, and then he tells the crowd to chant yes if they think so too, so they start chanting yes. He brings out Daniel Bryan. Edge talks about how, you know, he sees a lot in himself in Daniel Bryan, where they both wanted to be wrestlers, and that wasn't their second option. They both wrestled in barns, this and that. And anyways, eventually it leads to Randy coming out, and Randy takes a few shots at Edge, saying that it's a shame his body failed him so early, or at a young age. And afterwards, Edge talks about Triple H a little bit. He says he says he has Triple H can't spot talents. He doesn't have an eye for talents. And that's when Triple H comes out and he tells Edge to say it's in his face. Edge says he doesn't have a problem saying it's his face because he's not employed there, so he doesn't have to worry about that. So, he says it's his face. He says, you didn't think Chris Jericho was going to make it. You didn't think John Cena was going to make it. You didn't think I was going to make it. Triple H admits he was wrong about John Cena and Chris Jericho, but then he says somebody who was right about being a failure is Edge. Anyways, afterwards he dissed Edge. Edge also made fun of Triple H's nose. Anyways, in the end, Triple H says it's easy to talk when, we can't touch you, this and that. So, instead, what we can do, while we can't touch you, while we can't, take it out on you, we can take it out on those you love. So then, the Shield brings out Christian, who seems to have gotten beaten up backstage or something like that by the Shield. They drag him to the stage and just drop him. And Edge gets out of the ring running and checks up on Christian. After that, Christian catches up to Triple H backstage, going into his office, and he was trying to go after Triple H, but the Shield stopped him, and Triple H starts yelling at Edge, telling him what does he think he's doing, going into Triple H's home, Triple H's town, and this and that. Edge told Triple H that if he was cleared, he would come after Triple H. Triple H tells him the doctors are never going to clear him. In the end, he ends up telling the Shield to escort Edge out of the building, but Edge leaves himself. Afterwards, you had Curtis Axel versus Kofi Kingston, the rematch from SmackDown. And this time, Axel got disqualified when he was in the corner, and he kept attacking Kofi Kingston, so referee ends up disqualifying him. After the match, Paul Heyman's all worried, telling Curtis Axel this can't happen this Sunday. And Curtis Axel tells him it won't happen. Anyways, he goes after Kofi Kingston even after the match is done. Kofi Kingston, though, punches him and then follows that up with Trouble in Paradise. And then afterwards, backstage, Booker T's giving advice to Big Show, kind of like last week when he was giving advice to Daniel Bryan. He was telling him basically not to try and be a hero and think about his family, think about his daughter, and, not to let pride take over. And he also said in this segment that he would have done the same thing as the Big Show did last week if he was put in the same spot. Oh yeah, and also backstage, you had they show Paul Heyman on the ground, and he was hurting, like his knee was hurting him or something like that. And then there was also visible water on the ground. So we didn't see what happened, but it looks like Paul Heyman slipped or something. Referee grabs Paul Heyman and he helps him up along with Curtis Axel. They go to the trainer's room where Paul Heyman, he requests, the guy there says, we have a doctor, we'll bring him in. But Paul Heyman says, no, I have my own doctor. I don't want your doctor. So he says, okay, but at least we'll ice it, so they ice it. And anyways, after that segment, you had Dolph Ziggler versus Bray Wyatt. And Bray Wyatt won the matchup after hitting a body splash on Dolph Ziggler and following that up with the reverse STO, which I believe Michael Cole said he refers to or calls the sister Abigail. And before the body splash, Dolph got distracted by, the Wyatt family, and that's what allowed the body splash, followed by the finisher. Following that, you had Paul Heyman coming out in crutches, along with Curtis Axel and what seems to be his doctor, his own personal doctor. And pretty much to sum it up, he says unfortunately, he's going to have to pull out of the match this Sunday at Night of Champions, and he says, believe him, he really wanted to team up with Curtis Axel. And then Brad Maddox comes out with Dr. Samson, and he says, we have our own doctors, and if he says he can't compete, then he won't compete, or whatever. So, Dr. Samson checks up on Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman really didn't want him to check up on him, but he checks up on him and says Paul Heyman's fine, so he's going to compete this Sunday at Night of Champions. And then Paul Heyman comes out, CM Punk's music hits, and he comes out running with the kendo stick, and he starts beating up, he beats up Curtis Axel with the kendo stick, he gets away, and also Paul Heyman runs away fast. He ran away really fast through the crowd. And then CM Punk starts hitting the doctor, the fake doctor, not Dr. Samson, but the fake doctor that Paul Heyman brought out with the kendo stick to end the segment. Afterwards, it was the Divas match. It was actually a six Diva tag team matchup. Layla, Aksana, and Alicia Fox versus Brie Bella, Natalya, and Naomi. Not that long of a matchup. In the end, Natalya locks on the sharpshooter on Alicia Fox. Alicia Fox taps out pretty much instantly, pretty much right away after she locks it on. And one funny thing I got on commentary, AJ was on commentary, by the way, and she told Jerry the King Lawler, she was too old for him. And Jerry the King Lawler, I think, replied back, yeah, he said, well, it's okay, you're too ugly for me, or something like that. But anyways, after that, R-Truth faced off against Del Rio, and they showed a little Rob Van Dam promo before the matchup. Anyways, as far as the match goes, during the match, the crowd was just chanting everything, except for Del Rio or R-Truth or anything like that. They were chanting JBL, they were chanting Michael Cole. At some point, they were chanting something, I think, but I couldn't really get what they were saying. I couldn't understand what the crowd was chanting. And then afterwards, they also were chanting Undertaker. So, yeah. Anyways, Del Rio ends up winning after hitting a super kick followed by the cross armbreaker. I noticed in the matchup when Del Rio went for his usual tilt-the-world backbreaker, he missed it, or actually he botched it, or just didn't get his knee up and instead just put Del Rio right on the mats, or threw him right on the mats. So yeah, Del Rio wins the matchup. After that, they actually announced that at Night of Champions, there was going to be a Tag Team Turmoil match to become the number one contenders to the Tag Team titles. It is going to be the Primetime Players versus the Usos versus Brodus Clay and Tensai. Also, did I say the Real Americans? The Real Americans, 3MB, pretty much every single tag team. Facing off to determine who's going to be the number one contender. And also, after that, you had Antonio Cesaro and Zeb Coulter in the ring. Jack Swagger wasn't there. And Zeb Coulter cut a promo this in Canada. Anyways, like I said, I told you guys I thought Santino was going to return, and he does. So, yeah, Santino comes out, and he's facing off against Antonio Cesaro. And this match was entertaining. It was a short match, but it was entertaining, both because of Santino and Antonio Cesaro. Santino also got a big pop once he returned. Antonio Cesaro swung, he grabbed Santino by the legs and did it like a giant swing, and it freaking lasted like a minute or even more. I don't know, it lasted a long freaking time. The crowd was even chanting holy shit afterwards. Anyways, Santino ends up winning after he rolls up Antonio Cesaro by surprise and wins the matchup. Afterwards, it was Damien Sandow versus The Miz, and Damien Sandow actually got the victory. He hasn't won a matchup in a while, since I think winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. But Fandango came out and distracted The Miz, which allowed Damien Sandow to roll up The Miz for the 1-2-3. And then Fandango on the stage says it's Fandango. And then afterwards, you had Renee Young interview Goldust and his thoughts on the whole thing and everything. He says, Cody getting fired is ridiculous. And he was about to say, after tonight, Orton is never going to forget the name. He was about to say Goldust, but then Triple H comes in and he says, Dustin Rhodes. It's been a long time. And then he goes on to talk about how, Cody and, his new wife or fiance, they'll be watching on, and it's all up to Goldust right now. And pretty much he goes over how there's so much pressure on Goldust. And talks about how disappointing it would be if Goldust were to lose and this and that. So that is pretty much it for the interview. And then after that was the actual matchup, Goldust versus Randy. Pretty good match. And Goldust got a lot of offense in. In the end, actually, Goldust countered the RKO. And he actually hit the crossroads. And he went for the cover, but Randy kicked out. And then Randy tried rolling up Goldust, which Goldust kicked out of. Then Goldust went for a clothesline on Randy. Randy ducked and then hit the RKO on Goldust. Went for the cover, won the matchup. After the match, he grabbed the microphone and said, looks like, your dreams of saving Cody's career are over, are shattered. Just like Daniel Bryan's dreams of winning back the championship are going to be shattered this Sunday at Night of Champions. After that, backstage, you saw Goldust walking all sad and disappointed. And then Stephanie McMahon comes up to him, and then she talks about how disappointing it is that, he lost the matchup, and now Cody's not going to get his job back. And then she says it's all because of him. And then she calls Goldust a loser, just like his brother, and then tells him to leave and join Cody in the unemployment line. And then Rob Van Dam faced off against Ryback. So the two guys with the same ring gear faced off against each other. And Rob Van Dam won by disqualification when Ryback on the outside grabbed Rob Van Dam and pretty much shoved them crotch first into the steel post. Actually, the first time he kind of missed it, or it wasn't as impactful, but then he did it a second time. Referee disqualifies him. And after the match, Ryback hits the shell shock, and that was it. After that, oh yeah, I forgot. Before the actual match started, Del Rio came out, cut a short promo, saying that Ricardo belongs with Rob Van Dam, just like the World Heavyweight Championship and Del Rio belong together. And then he said after Night of Champions, the crowd won't be chanting RVD anymore, they'll be chanting ADR. After the match, Big Show was backstage walking towards, I guess, the arena, the ring, to be at ringside with Daniel Bryan when he faces off against Dean Ambrose, because the Shield will be at ringside with Dean Ambrose. So Stephanie McMahon comes up to him and tells him she won't have him lay a hand on the Shield, and if he does lay a hand on the Shield, then he will be terminated. So Big Show's furious, grabs a TV and throws it on the ground, and it's one of those old TVs, and those old TVs are actually pretty damn heavy. Trust me. A lot heavier than the newer TVs. But anyways, that's not really relevant. And then come time for the matchup. Dean Ambrose versus Daniel Bryan. Great match. In the end, Daniel Bryan actually wins with a roll-up. And actually, during the matchup, both Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins tried to interfere when Daniel Bryan was on the outside. Roman Reigns tried to spear, Daniel Bryan ducked, so Roman Reigns hit the steel steps instead. Seth Rollins tried to jump on Daniel Bryan, but Daniel Bryan got out of the way, so he hits the announcer's table. In the end, like I said, Daniel Bryan wins with a roll-up, and right after the match ends, Daniel Bryan throws Ambrose out of the ring onto the Shield, and then Randy's music hits, and he comes out, and Daniel Bryan stops him in his tracks with a suicide dive. He starts kicking Randy Orton, and then the Shields come back, and they start attacking Daniel Bryan. Big Show comes right next to them with a steel chair, but they tell him to put the chair down and not do anything, so Big Show puts the chair down. And then Randy rolls Daniel Bryan back in the ring. The Shield, at this point, I think they leave, and Randy goes back in the ring. He hits an RKO on Daniel Bryan, and then Big Show's about to leave. But then Triple H stops him. Triple H comes out with Stephanie McMahon on the stage, and they tell the Big Show once again to go back in that ring, be a professional, go back in that ring, and knock Daniel Bryan out. So Big Show slowly goes back in the ring, and he doesn't want to do it, of course. Randy starts yelling at him, telling him to do it. He says it'll make it easier for him by picking Daniel Bryan up for Big Show so he can knock him out. So he picks him up. Big Show teases that he's gonna knock him out or something, but he doesn't do anything. So Randy yells at him some more. Big Show says he's not gonna knock anybody out. And, Randy Orton's distracted by yelling at the Big Show all this time. And when Randy Orton finally turns around once again, this time Daniel Bryan's up right now, and he hits him with the running knee. And yeah, so Daniel Bryan finally got the upper hand over Randy and the Shields. He grabs the championship and poses over Randy Orton, starts doing the yes chant, and Big Show leaves. And that was it. So Big Show pretty much distracted Randy long enough for Daniel Bryan to get up and hit his finisher on Randy. So with that, I think about the show tonight. Highlights. Goldust versus Randy. Enjoyed that matchup. And also Santino Marella returning. And not just that, but one of the highlights was Antonio Cesaro freaking the swing, the giant swing for like a minute or however long that was. That was a long freaking swing. And it was an entertaining swing. It was pretty impressive. If you're wondering what it looked like, basically, if you guys remember when Antonio Cesaro was feuding with The Miz and he grabbed him by the legs and swung him over the barricade like 4 times or something like that, pretty much imagine that. It's the same exact thing, but there's no barricade, so he's just swinging him around for like a freaking minute or for a long time. And what else was there? Also, I noticed the 3 people won their matchup with roll-up. Santino and The Miz. No, not The Miz. I mean, Damien Sandow rolled up The Miz, and also Daniel Bryan beating Dean Ambrose. Nice to see also Daniel Bryan getting the upper hand now. I kind of expected it. I was expecting Daniel Bryan to get the upper hand this week, either on Raw tonight, and if it wasn't going to happen on Raw, I was going to expect it on SmackDown. Who knows? Maybe he gets the upper hand on SmackDown too, if he shows up on SmackDown. And really enjoyed the opening segment, the cutting edge. Ed was great in that. It was a good show. In my opinion, a good improvement over last week's. And also, I'm wondering what Edge is going to do on SmackDown. I was also kind of surprised that there is no United States Championship matchup announced, nor is a tag team title match announced, unless that number 1 contendership match on the kickoff show determines the number 1 contenders for Night of Champions itself. So whoever wins that kickoff match gets the match the day of, Night of Champions, but I'm not sure about that. So as far as the rating goes for tonight's Raw, I'd actually give it a 6.5 on 10, maybe even 7, around that range. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, as always, you can click that like button down below. I'd really appreciate it. And with that said, I'm out, guys. See ya.